So here we see Unravel has sent out a Slack alert to a channel letting an admin know about some inconsistencies in the pipeline that has been just recently migrated. This could do with a missing SLA, it could do with a cost overrun, or it could do with some validations regarding data. So let's take a look at each of these use cases. So if we see here, we have our pipeline, the reporting insights hourly pipeline that has been migrated to the cloud. And what we see basically is that its running time on the cloud is much higher than what is its baseline. So if we see the running time in the cloud is close to 5 minutes, these values are in milliseconds, while the baseline runs within a minute. So that's why we are collecting this information, and based on that, we assign it a label which is called delayed. And Unravel can detect this and basically serve up an insight which has a link embedded in it, which when clicked, we can take a look at what's happening at the cluster level. So if we do that, we come to the Unravel UI, where we can take a closer look at what's really happening. And we see that this particular cluster, which was assigned to this app, also is being shared by another resource-intensive app, which is basically hogging up all the allocated memory and other resources. So this is a pretty common use case that we see, and one of the more accepted ways to work around this is basically since these clusters on the cloud are already app focused, it would make sense to carve out a cluster specifically for this app so that it can run and basically decouple these two apps, and that the other cluster can run this app independently, and we have enough resources so that our pipeline can complete within the proper SLA. The next use case which we have is to do with cost. So if we take another example here, so we see that in this particular pipeline, the job insight aggregate V4 pipeline, so this has been migrated to the cloud already. And we see that later runs of this pipeline, right, specifically this run, 17th March 21 on 7/16, 7/5, we see that it has taken around $12. It has costed around $12 on the cost on the cloud. And what we see is that the baseline is around $2.50. So that's why we again attribute a cost overrun label to this. And if you want to take a closer look at what has happened, we can basically take a look at this Gantt chart view. So this Gantt chart view, what it does is entails all the running components within the pipeline. And it is pretty apparent to see that the later runs of this pipeline are running more components compared to the baseline run. So what would this mean is that the developer who actually owns this pipeline has made some changes to the pipeline. And this is pretty common in on-prem cases where you might make changes in the components of a pipeline, the logic of the pipeline to optimize certain parameters. But on the cloud, this has major implications, which it could actually result in a blow up of the cost as shown here. And Unravel can actually detect these changes and can help us admins communicate this fact to the developers better. And finally, we come to our last scenario, which has to do with validations, right? So as Shivnath was talking about, while we are migrating our pipelines from the on-prem to cloud, the only way to actually guarantee correctness is to put in place certain validation checks. So what happens is when this pipelines runs, these validation checks are evaluated, and based on that, we can come up with a confident estimate of how well our pipeline is doing, and that we have not actually violated any validation check. In this case, what we see that this pipeline, after migrating to the cloud, it's okay. It's meeting its SLA, its cost is under control, but we see that there's certain validation checks that have failed that have to do with data quality. So this is where the tools like Great Expectations come in, and Unravel's extensible architecture allows us to interface with such tools. So you could easily use the great expectation operator available in Airflow to define and integrate a certain suite of validations to your Airflow DAG and pipeline. And say if something fails, the action that great expectations can do is to communicate the results of the failure to the Unravel backend, which is then used to render the view which you see here. And if you see, we have all the information which we received from Great Expectations, wherein what was the actual data asset that violated, which is this customer table which caused the violation. This was a pipeline which actually, the code which actually caused, the instance of the code that actually caused violation. And what was the exact violation, which was, that one violation failed basically, where the row count, number of rows in the table should have been less than 10,000, but it is gone up to say 19,000. So we very specifically know what went wrong, and then we can use this admins and developers can use this information to further introspect their pipelines and see what is the issue and then fix it.